Please welcome Kara Hurst, Jennifer Morris, and Mayor Daniela Levine-Cava.
Welcome to Miami Beach and to Aspen Ideas Climate. We're so excited that you're with us today. I'm Daniela Levine-Cava, Mayor of Miami-Dade County. I guess some of you have heard of me. Okay. And it is so exciting to be part of this wonderful first of 3-year gathering across the nation, leaders everywhere talking about climate issues. And today, I am really proud to be moderating a panel with 2 outstanding women leaders at the forefront of climate action. So I'm going to introduce myself for a second with a fun fact, and then I'm going to ask each of them to do the same. So my fun fact is that my daughter, who's now 36, is actually the real environmentalist in the family. And she says, "Mom, fix it." So I'm doing my very best. Okay. All right, let's go to Jen. Fun fact.
Fun fact. Good morning, everyone. Great to be here. I'm Jennifer Morris, the CEO of the Nature Conservancy. My fun fact would be, I guess, that I lived in northern Namibia when I was very young, in my 20s as a volunteer, and I learned the local language, which is called Oshiwambo. Unfortunately, not really a lot of opportunities to practice Oshiwambo after I left Namibia, so sadly, I'm really rusty, but if there's anybody that speaks Oshiwambo out there, I'd love to practice. So that's my fun fact.
Perfect. Kara, let's hear from you.
I want to learn Oshiwamba. That sounds amazing. Hi, I'm Kara Hurst. I lead sustainability at Amazon. It's a pleasure to be here, so thank you for having us. I will say my fun fact, I'm going to follow on yours, Mayor. My fun fact is I'm starting to see, I have 2 teenagers, and they are starting to get into sustainability in different ways, which is really fun. And I've just taken my daughter on her first kind of college tours, which is exciting. And my son's going to study solar engineering this summer in his summer program. So I'm really excited to see what this next generation is going to do.
That is very cool, both of you. So, Jen, let's start with you. We know that community engagement is a personal passion of yours. And I don't know whether you learned that in Namibia or where, but taking a people-first approach central to your work in climate. So can you talk a bit about some of your work at Nature Conservancy that leads locally to building climate resilience?
Of course. Thanks, Mayor. I'd actually like to start very local. Let's start with here in Miami. So who in the audience lives in Miami? Hands up.
Miami-Dade will be expanded.
Miami-Dade, yes. Fantastic. So a lot of you, most of you, you know that the climate crisis is real. You live it. It's not a question that water is going to come. Water is here. Water is everywhere in your backyards. The climate crisis is visceral for all of you. And I guess the question is not if or when, but how severe, and what can you do about it? And I think one of the great things that the Nature Conservancy is doing within Florida and within this community is working really well with the community, with the mayor's office, with many of the public officials, as well as with corporations. And I'll just mention one example in Morningside Park in Biscayne Bay, which is looking at how do we build natural climate solutions to help prevent the worst case scenarios of sea level rise and storm surges. And we're doing that in a really interesting way. The obvious solution is, of course, you just build a seawall, right? Just put up some gray infrastructure, protect it, we'll all be fine. But no one really wants to go to a park and look at a seawall, right? And the beauty of nature and using nature's technology is that communities can blend that in with the gray infrastructure. And so that pilot project, working with the insurance giant Chubb for an investment in Morningside Park, is really having transformational impacts in terms of not only at that site of blending mangroves and seawalls, but also as an example of how we can do adaptation to climate change in a more nature-friendly, nature-positive, and let's be honest, prettier way. So that's one example that's very, very local.
Well, that's a great example. And honestly, if you haven't been to Morningside Park recently, check it out because it is truly a gem. And it's great to know more about that partnership. So you are also very active in collaborating across sectors for dealing with global crisis. And many of these are nature-based projects. And what opportunities can you tell us about to help us leverage nature to mitigate carbon emissions?
Sure. Well, I actually would also invite Kara to join in this conversation because the Nature Conservancy and Amazon have what I think is a really transformational partnership in the Amazon, its namesake. And I just came from Brazil. I guess I've been traveling so much. I think it was a week and a half ago now. And I was in the state of Pará, which is in the northern part of Amazon, and was actually witnessing the arc of deforestation, which is happening right now in Pará. Pará has the highest deforestation rates in the entire Amazon. And for those of you that follow deforestation, you know that the Amazon is under severe threat. 40% of the world's deforestation is actually coming from this one state in the Amazon. So being there and seeing what's happening on the ground with farmers was very sobering, but also really important as we think about solutions. And as David Lucian said on the panel before last, it is all about economics. It's about economics, and it's also about enforcement. And Brazil has some great laws, but they're not really well enforced. So what this partnership is doing is bringing new economic models around one of our favorite things, I'm sure, which is chocolate. So helping farmers to grow cacao in these places as an alternative to cattle, which is destroying the rainforest. It's like walking through a really bad Dr. Seuss book. You see a beautiful forest that had been destroyed, and the one truffula tree, in this case, the one Brazil nut tree that's protected by law, and everything else has been destroyed for cattle. So working on sustainable models that value reforestation and restoration and agroforestry, as well as carbon. And I think carbon is a really I met this one farmer named Raimundo, and he said he can't wait to be paid to keep his trees standing. And that's what this partnership is all about. So we have big goals of working with 2,000 farmers and over 50,000 acres in the next couple of years. So we're really excited to work with Amazon on that.
Yeah, let's hear from you, Kara, about that partnership and what role the private sector plays in helping to build climate resiliency.
Well, absolutely. So the Agroforestry Accelerator is something that we're really excited to continue to invest in. And of course, when we do that kind of partnership, we want to find credible partners who have on-the-ground experience, like the folks at the Nature Conservancy and folks in local communities. Because as you just mentioned, at least, for here in Miami-Dade, you all know best what's happening in your community. You know what solutions are going to work, but you need partnerships and help figure that out and accelerate it. Same thing that we're doing with the Agroforestry Accelerator. So while we know as corporations, reading, IPCC reporting, looking at the recent science, we know that we need to first and foremost change our operations and abate emissions. We need to make those operational changes to bring emissions down. But we also feel very strongly, and we know that we need to invest in natural climate solutions and nature-based solutions. We'd love to see a very credible carbon market be established. So these kind of partnerships are critical. And we want to continue to invest, but we want to do this in a way that really respects the people who are, indigenous to land and know what the best solutions are. So these projects are large, they're ambitious, they're very difficult to get off the ground. I think recognizing that and saying it's not, we just come together and therefore it happens. These are really complicated things to work through. I think both teams have been very dedicated to that. Lots of lessons learned that I'm sure we'll continue to share. But they have the potential to have enormous impact. I think the Agroforestry Accelerator at this point, with about the 3,000 farmers we'll eventually work with, will abate 10 million metric tons by 2050. So that is a significant contribution. We need to do the both and. We need to change our operations. We need to operate differently, and we need to invest in nature. So that's what we're doing with the Nature Conservancy and others.
Thank you for that great explanation. And maybe if you could just say a word about your vehicles. We were talking about that as we were coming in.
Absolutely. So Amazon, we're in many different industries, but of course fulfillment being one of them. And so our transportation sector is one that we know we can continue to send big market signals on. We can make our own changes, those operational changes. So back in 2019, based on a number of years of work, we established something called the Climate Pledge, which is our commitment to be net zero carbon by 2040. And we invited others to come along with us because working through industry is really the only way that we're going to send those big market signals. We're going to have demands for products and services. So when we established the Climate Pledge, we also made an announcement that we ordered 100,000 electric delivery vans from a company called Rivian. And we will have all 100,000 of those on the road by 2030. So that kind of big signal began to say to the industry, okay, this is real. Companies are going to demand these kinds of vehicles, which frankly, at that point, one of the issues, we actually couldn't find the right vehicle. So making that vehicle to suit for our delivery purposes, but we've also partnered with Mahindra and with Mercedes-Benz and a number of others. So it's multiple different OEMs that have to provide the solution. And then, of course, partnerships with governments and locality and communities around the electrification infrastructure that we're going to need, the charging infrastructure. And then thinking about if we're going to build that for our purposes, how can we then extend it to people in communities, and how can we make this more available to everyone? I drive an EV, and I know, finding charging is, great. It's not always easy. So we want to see more and more and more of that happen, and we want to green the grids where that's happening. So it's kind of a multi-step solution. And I should just mention, we also are electrifying our middle mile and also looking at green hydrogen for solutions there for our line haul trucking as well.
Excellent. Yesterday, we had a panel at the port talking about moving to shore power with the major cruise lines. And one of the important points that was raised, and we are at the forefront in the Eastern Corridor with shore power, very excited to move that forward. One of the points made was about the supply chain. So it's not just what you do with your own operations, but it's everybody leading up to. And I'd like to turn to you, Jen, a little bit more about how Nature Conservancy came to be focused on these public-private or these partnerships with nonprofits and government and business.
Sure, absolutely. Well, it's quite simple. I think everyone needs to be engaged to solve the world's greatest challenges. And of course, the biodiversity crisis and the climate crisis are two of the big ones that the Nature Conservancy focuses on, especially how it intersects with people and how we can help people ensure that they have the right economic opportunities to thrive. And that's where companies come in. As, of course, the largest employers the world over, we have got to constructively engage with companies. So companies like Amazon, we heard from Lisa Jackson from Apple. There are many other leading brands out there that are really trying to solve some of these big problems. However, they can't do it on their own. And as we think about the complex challenges of deforestation, let's just take the Amazon that I was talking about before, it's not just about what happens on the farm. It's a much more holistic thing. So as someone who's working in a supply chain can really only do so much to change that company's production patterns. It's really important, and they must do the on-farm work and really create the right incentives with local governments to change behavior. However, there's a lot of stuff happening that the companies can't control. So that's where an organization like the Nature Conservancy, Conservation International, NRDC, there are many others represented here today, that's where they come in close partnership with others, with companies, with governments, to really create these holistic solutions that will last. So that's really why we feel like it's imperative that we work with companies.
I had the good fortune to go to Scotland for COP26, and that was a major takeaway for me. The number of market solutions, the number of market imperatives that are really leading us to making the right choices, and obviously we can't go it alone. We can't just legislate. We have to really change the hearts and minds and the economic formulas for everybody as well. Well, we have an important announcement, I believe, Jen, that you wanted to share with us. You want to tee that up?
I think it's actually Kara's announcement.
Oh, excuse me, Kara.
That's okay. We're really excited. Today we're announcing a new partnership with the National Geographic Society, and this is to support climate storytelling as part of the Society's Global Storytellers Fund. So this is something we think is really critical, in addition to the data and the science, of course, that lead us into, what are the right solutions to combat climate change. enabling storytelling from a diverse set of next generation leaders who are out there in community and finding those stories is going to be so critical to that piece you just talked about, Mayor, around the hearts and minds. What are people connecting to? What are they seeing in their communities? So we're really proud, to enable this visual storytelling with global audiences. And we have a brief video that we want to share to just tell you a little bit more about it. So I think that's going to play now.
Culture is like the fabric of human society. The outside world is always fascinated by different communities and cultures. Each person inside of them has a desire to connect with people.
Storytelling has the ability to change the world, to show people things that they couldn't imagine or that they can't see, to change the way we think. They change the way we act. Science often provides the intellectual framework, appeals to your head, but storytelling can go to the heart.
My name is Asha Stewart, and I am a National Geographic explorer. I think as a cultural anthropologist, there's a million ways that you can be in the field. I realized early on that through photography and filmmaking, I could connect with different people and cultures around the world.
We're very excited to partner with the Climate Pledge to fund 15 National Geographic explorers over 3 years. And each one of them is a storyteller who will be focused on stories of climate change from the front lines.
My approach is really coming from a place of collaboration. I'm talking to a lot of different people. I'm trying to understand their community, their culture, their problems. And then from there, I'm able to really go in and document the true nature of the community and the true issues that are happening.
The work that the Climate Pledge is helping us support through these storytellers is, I think it's vital. It's stories centered on resilience, solutions, adaptation, best practices by Indigenous communities. It gives me a sense of hope that we're putting these stories into the world that show that, the situation is not hopeless and there are things that we can all do.
Right. Amazing. Beautiful. Kara, you want to tell us a little more about that?
Yeah, well, I think we're really interested in finding, what's going on. We know that the best solutions are not going to come necessarily from our work in corporations. They're not necessarily going to come from NGOs. They may, but they may also come from people in community who know best what their community needs, what the solutions are for restoring their land. And we want to be able to elevate those stories, give light to them, and inspire. I think a lot of us facing this challenge, it can be very daunting at times when you think about the scale of what needs to happen and the speed that we need to go. So we're excited. We have over 300 companies, I should mention, that have already signed on to the Climate Pledge. So it is a very large, multi-national group across 26 different industries. So we have so many companies that have signed up in this accelerated commitment to climate change, to reach net zero carbon by 2040. And these stories will inspire others, to find those new products and solutions and ways that we can move forward. So we're really excited about that optimism.
And for sure that the stories are what grab people's attention, their hearts. The facts are better received after you've connected on that emotional level. So what a great initiative. Thank you. Thank you so much. And how about you, Jen? Anything with stories in the Nature Conservancy world?
Absolutely. So we take storytelling very seriously. It's an incredible opportunity, I think, to, as we said, to really inspire people. We hear the data, we hear the doom and gloom constantly. We all know the statistics, but there are so many hopeful stories out there. And I consider myself an impatient optimist. So I love to hear the stories and then actually see how we can turn those into real life solutions. And the pledges are really, really important, but then you need to roll up your sleeves and do the hard work of how do you work with these farmers in a way that's meaningful, that can scale? How do you work with companies who've set these incredible targets, but then they're not quite sure when they turn around to their CSO, their corporate social responsibility team, how are we going to do this? And that's where organizations like TNC and many others come in to sort of figure out the steps of those complex things, these incredible challenges that we're all facing, to really change the way that we get our food, to change the way that we get to work, to change everything about ourselves and our lives in a way that will not undermine the natural world. So that's where I think the storytelling is absolutely essential. And I really credit this partnership and National Geographic and Amazon for taking this on. It's incredibly important that we get those stories out to new audiences, diverse audiences, and other languages as well.
Well, as a born-again community organizer, I have to say, we all know the importance of stories. And now that I'm in government, I don't think we use our platform well enough for stories. So to all of you in the public sector out there, let's take a page, a lesson from these wonderful examples and the investments that are being made. Definitely a picture, is worth 1,000 words. A story is what really motivates people. Any closing words, ladies?
I would just say, I think, again, I'll go back to the point that products and services are needed and solutions are needed now more than ever. I think we need to spend less time. The storytelling is critically important, but we're not convincing anymore. The data, the science is real. All of you in this room know that. I know I'm speaking to an audience that's extremely well educated on that point. But to get beyond that, we really do need to dig in and address the complexities. So to go back to something like, creating credible carbon markets, what a daunting challenge. But if we don't get started right now in this decisive decade, in this moment, we're not going to have a shot at it. And if we don't tackle these, public-private partnerships that we absolutely need to change our communities, we can have healthier air, healthier communities. We can have cleaner air. This is going to be better. So this is not about sacrifice. This is about something that is a future state that is better, a more resilient community, a healthier community. And we're really excited, and you should know the private sector is ready to invest in these kind of solutions. Signing up for that kind of accelerated climate commitment is challenging. So we need everyone at the table to come forward with the solutions, and we're incredibly excited about the partnerships that we see.
Amen to that. How about you, Jen?
I might just salute the Aspen Institute, because you've brought together some really amazing voices on both sides of the aisle. I mean, we've heard today, and that is really critical. And that's something that TNC takes really seriously, is this approach to bipartisan solutions. And so thank you to Aspen for doing that, for bringing us here to Miami, and for really opening, I think, both hearts and minds to alternative ideas and views. We need all of those in the tent, and we need to talk about it, and then we need to create real lasting solutions. So thank you, Mayor.
All right, impatient optimism. Let's hear it for these two wonderful ladies. Thank you so much.